Ariana Grande is living through one of the quietest yet most revealing eras of her entire career. This is not an era defined by chart numbers, flashy performances, or constant headlines. Instead, it is defined by restraint, silence, and emotional distance. For someone who once lived openly in front of the camera, this shift feels noticeable. It feels intentional, and it feels deeply personal. When Ariana first entered the industry, she was loud, expressive, and constantly present. She shared her excitement, her humor, her fears, and her love openly. Interviews felt playful. Public appearances felt effortless. Fans felt like they knew her. Over time, that openness became part of her brand. People expected access. They expected explanations. They expected Ariana to always show up as the version of herself they were comfortable with. But that version no longer exists in the same way. Today's Ariana Grande speaks more slowly. She pauses before answering questions. She chooses her words carefully. She avoids unnecessary details. Her body language feels guarded. Her expressions are softer, sometimes distant. To many people, this feels confusing. Some see it as arrogance, others see it as weakness, but for those paying close attention, it looks like something else entirely. It looks like someone who has learned the cost of being too open. Ariana has experienced a level of public trauma that few people can truly understand. Major life events, personal loss, public criticism, and intense media scrutiny all happened while the world was watching. There was no privacy to process pain. There was no safe space to fall apart quietly. Every emotion was dissected. Every reaction was judged. Every silence was filled with assumptions. When a person goes through that much while remaining visible, something changes. The nervous system changes. Trust changes. The relationship with the outside world changes. Silence becomes a form of protection, not distance. This current era of Ariana Grande feels like a boundary era. She is no longer offering herself fully to public consumption. She is no longer performing emotional availability. She is choosing what to give and what to keep. And for celebrities, that choice is often misunderstood. People confuse boundaries with coldness. They confuse privacy with secrecy. They confuse growth with detachment. But growth is rarely loud. Healing is rarely entertaining, and peace is often boring to those who benefit from chaos. In interviews, Ariana no longer over-explains herself. She does not correct every rumor. She does not defend every decision. She allows misunderstandings to exist. That alone shows a level of emotional maturity that many people never reach. It means she is no longer living for validation. She is no longer measuring her worth by public approval. This shift can be uncomfortable for fans who built an emotional connection to an earlier version of her. When someone changes, especially someone people feel attached to, it can feel like loss. But change does not mean betrayal. It means survival. Ariana's silence is not emptiness. It is full. It is full of reflection, boundaries, and emotional recalibration. It is the silence of someone who has already said everything and learned that words do not always protect you. There is also something deeply human about outgrowing the need to be understood by everyone. At some point, clarity becomes internal rather than external. You stop explaining because you finally understand yourself. You stop reacting because you no longer need permission. This is especially important when considering how young Ariana was when fame truly began shaping her identity. Growing up in public freezes people in time. The audience remembers who you were, not who you are becoming. When you change, people resist. They want the old comfort back. But no one stays the same forever, especially not after pain. In this era, Ariana appears more grounded, but also more cautious. Her joy feels quieter. Her confidence feels internal rather than performative. Her presence feels intentional. This does not mean she is unhappy. It means she is no longer seeking happiness through external noise. The pressure placed on female celebrities to remain emotionally accessible is intense. They are expected to smile, explain, reassure, and remain relatable at all times. When they stop doing that, They are labeled distant or difficult. Ariana stepping back challenges that expectation. It forces people to confront the idea that entertainers are not emotional property. Another important detail is how Ariana's artistry reflects this change. Her creative choices feel more controlled. Her public appearances are selective. Her image feels carefully protected. This is not accidental. This is someone who understands the consequences of overexposure and is actively choosing a different path. Silence can be powerful. Silence can say, "I owe you nothing." Silence can say, "I am listening to myself now." Silence can say, "I survived." For Ariana Grande, silence seems to be a form of self-respect. There's also grief present in this era. Grief does not always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like emotional distance. Sometimes it looks like slowing down. Sometimes it looks like detaching from things that once defined you. Grief changes how people interact with the world, and Ariana's energy reflects someone who has learned to carry loss quietly. Fans who truly care should not demand access. They should not demand explanations. They should not expect consistency from someone whose life has been anything but stable. Support does not mean entitlement. It means allowing someone to evolve without punishment. This version of Ariana Grande feels less like a performer and more like a person choosing peace over noise, control over chaos, boundaries over approval. She may never return to the version of herself that people miss, and that is okay, because that version existed before she knew what fame would cost her. What we are seeing now is not decline, it is recalibration. It is the aftermath of survival. It is someone learning how to exist without constantly being consumed. And perhaps the most powerful thing about this era is that Ariana does not explain it. She does not label it. She does not package it. She simply lives it. Sometimes the loudest statement a person can make is choosing silence. And maybe that silence is not an ending at all, but the beginning of a life that finally belongs to her. There is also something important to understand about silence in the public eye. When someone like Ariana Grande goes quiet, the world rushes to fill that silence with its own stories. Assumptions appear. Narratives are created. Motives are assigned. And often, those narratives say more about the audience than about the person being observed. Ariana no longer rushes to correct the story. That alone signals a deep shift in power. She is no longer letting public opinion control her emotional state. She understands now that clarification does not always bring peace. Sometimes it only invites more scrutiny. Choosing silence is choosing control. This era also reflects emotional exhaustion. Long-term visibility drains people in ways that are difficult to explain. Every expression becomes content. Every gesture becomes a headline. Over time, the self begins to fragment. You stop knowing which parts of you are real and which parts exist only for survival. Pulling back is often the only way to reconnect with the self. Ariana's quieter presence feels like someone who is rebuilding internally, not for an audience, not for an era, but for longevity, emotional longevity, mental stability, a life that can exist beyond applause. It is also worth noting how calm does not mean absence. Ariana still shows up, she still creates, she still speaks when it matters, but she no longer overextends. She no longer burns herself to keep others warm. That change alone reflects growth that many people never achieve. There is maturity in choosing less exposure, less explanation, less performance. In a world that rewards constant output, choosing restraint is an act of strength. Her silence also challenges the idea that celebrities owe the public constant access. Fame may create visibility, but it does not erase humanity. Ariana's evolution reminds us that being seen does not mean being available. What many people miss is that this version of Ariana may actually be the most honest one yet. Not because she shares everything, but because she no longer shares what is not safe. Honesty does not always look like openness. Sometimes it looks like protection. There is a softness in how she moves now, but also a firmness, a sense that she knows her limits, that she has reached the point where preserving herself matters more than pleasing others. That kind of clarity usually comes after pain. This era is not meant to entertain. It is meant to sustain, and that may be why it feels unfamiliar. Ariana Grande is no longer asking to be understood. She is simply asking to be left intact. And in a world that profits from breaking people down, that choice may be her most powerful one yet.